Welcome to a video that will change how we live. An emerging technology is bringing about limitless energy to our world. This is the movement of the next age, an electrifying revolution that you are now a part of. Enjoy.
The following presentation was held on Michigan State's campus in front of a live student audience with John Rosebush.
Good afternoon and welcome. In this presentation today, you'll be introduced to a new energy invention that will revolutionize the way electricity is produced. This new invention promises that nearly every nation in the world will be able to generate cheap, environmentally safe energy. Energy that will greatly reduce air and water pollution and eliminate the worldwide dependence on fossil fuels. My name is Verge Bennett.
My name is Luke Hessler, and we will be your hosts tonight. We have our guest here, Mr. John Rosebush, and we've come to appreciate what this new technology can potentially mean for ourselves, our audience, and really all of those who care about our planet. And that's why we invited all of you guys to be here today. The legacy we will leave for future generations is close, obviously, to my heart, as it is to the system's creator, Mr. John Rosebush. And so the whole intention of this gathering is really just to raise awareness, to show people what's possible, and to show people that there is a better way. I think it's pretty obvious. We can all see what's going on in our ozone. If you've recently seen the documentary that was done by Leonardo DiCaprio and other people like that, we need a change. We need a shift. And John has been blessed to be able to come up with that change and come up with that shift. And so today we're going to be hosting an interview here with John where he's going to be revealing you guys his story, some components of the energy invention, and then also the implications of what it can go out there and do, because this is inarguably going to be the single most impactful invention since the invention of electricity. All right, what you guys can compare this to is imagine Henry Ford when he came out with the automobile, right? You asked everyone, if you went back in time and you asked them, what do they want? They're like, well, I want a faster horse or a more efficient carriage, right? But that's not really what they wanted. They wanted to get from point A to point B quicker. And so what he did is he created the automobile, and when you look outside, how many horse and buggies do we see? None, right? That's what this is going to do, all right? You will not see the use of fossil fuels, which is huge because right now 80% of our energy is coming from fossil fuels, which is absolutely incredible, and it's all from Mr. John Rosebush. And so, John, thank you so much for joining us here today, brother.
Oh, you're welcome. I want to make a statement about the goal of this whole project. The goal of this project is to be able to create almost unlimited clean energy distributed around our entire planet, cheap, and without using any resources. That is the only way we can power our world. Fossil fuels are being consumed. We need to be able to generate energy without feedstocks, and that's what fossil fuels are. And that's what this new energy invention is. It's based on kinetic energy, which means you generate energy from movement, okay? So, and this is based on river flow. And so my goal is to create a healthy planet where energy isn't even a concern, and I can create almost unlimited energy. And I believe we've done that. This should be the basis for a sustainable planet throughout our entire planet. If we have an unlimited energy source and we manage our resources properly, we should be able to sustain our future for millions of years. Right now, I'm going to talk about this later on, but oil, BP predicts there's 53 years of oil remaining. Most people think that, we just have an unlimited supply. We don't. We are using it up. We consume 31 billion barrels of oil every year. 31 billion barrels. Now, the North, put that in perspective, the North Dakota, South Dakota, and Montana oil shale find is 9 billion barrels. That's less than a 4-month world oil supply. And yet our country brags about it like as if, oh boy, we just found a discovery of, the century. It's less than a 4-month world oil supply. Now, I'm going to talk about a lot of the stuff as this presentation goes on. But that's my goal, is to create a sustainable planet for y'all. okay?
Absolutely. And before we go any further, I think it'd be great for the audience to just get to know you, get to know your story, where you came from, your background. You know, where were you born? Born and raised here. Were you born in Michigan? Or where were you
Yeah,
born?
I was born in Niles, Michigan. Then at 18, I joined the military, joined the 82nd Airborne. I was in the engineering outfit in the 82nd Airborne. I jumped out of airplanes 3 years. I ran heavy equipment in the military. After 3 years, I got out. I wanted to get out. I surely didn't want to be a lifetime military person. So then the next year, I went to Ferris State College, and I went 5 quarters in a row. And I graduated in IT, so it was really 3 years I went all together. And I had a 3.86 grade point, and so here I am, graduate from college in IT. So then I can tell you, I hate to say this, I'm surely not bragging because I don't care, but companies from all over tried to hire me. I had a military background, I had 2 kids, and I graduated college in 3 years with a 3.86 grade point in IT. This is back before PCs. So I had job opportunities at GM, Chrysler, Ford, Steelcase here in Michigan, Dow Chemical, Dow Corning. But Marathon Oil Company was in Findlay, Ohio. It was a small little town, 37,000 people back then. And my gosh, working for a major oil company, you guys have no idea. It was granite building, marble floors,
Nice.
gold-plated drinking fountains in some areas. So we're talking money, right? So that looked good to me. It was a small town, and I come from a small town. And we had 2 kids, and you know, to be truthful with you, a little bit scared to go to a big town. So part of it was just me not being worldly like you guys probably, but so, you know, Findlay looked good to me. Downtown shopping, my wife liked it. So we went to work at Marathon Oil Company, and I worked at Marathon Oil Company till I was 50. But at 42, I had a major heart attack. And my son was at Fort Dix Army Base, and we started playing basketball, and I thought I was a big shot. Well, I fell over with a major cardiac arrest. I died, and I was very lucky because right across the street from there was paramedics at the fire station, and they come running across the street, and they didn't even have to get in their vehicle, and they brought a portable defibrillator. They shocked my heart 3 times. They brought me back to life, put me in an ambulance. I died again on the way to the hospital in the ambulance. They took me to the hospital. 4 days later, I died again while I was on a vent in New Jersey. So on the 9th day, they put me on a portable, whatever it was, defibrillator, whatever, and not defibrillator, but respirator, and they life-flighted me to Cleveland Clinic on a medical airplane. And I got lucky because Marathon Oil Company paid for all that because I was well thought of in their oil company, and what the heck, they have their own airplanes if they wanted to. So then I spent until the 17th day at Cleveland Clinic, the largest heart hospital in the world, and I come out of the coma. And then they put a large stent in my heart, and they sent me home the next day. At age 50, I retired from Marathon because I felt like, you know, I actually, it was a real high-pressure job. I worked like almost in a think tank environment at Marathon, and we worked in a room with 5, 6 people. And you say, well, IT, you think I'm a little computer programmer? No, we design very complex computer systems to do all kinds of things. Like the last one I worked on was for 5 years. I had 57 IT people working for us 5 leads. We designed a terminal automation system where our terminals around the country can be completely manless. The only reason there's somebody there is for safety purposes. Truck driver don't come in and blow themselves up at one of the tanks.
Okay, so you went to Ferris, you graduated in 3 years, you worked at Marathon Oil Company for 30 years. 26 years, all right. And then you eventually retired, and that's when you decided to go on this project. But I hear it wasn't just you, right? You had other people that decided to go on this
I went up in your great uncle's area. I lived in Glen Arbor, which I don't know if they know where Sleeping Bear Dunes is at. I lived up in Glen Arbor probably 5 or 6 of the summers of the last 10 years. It's a very wealthy area, but you know, and I really didn't go up there to create this energy event. I went up there and to relax, and I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do now, you know? And I was lucky enough to make some good money at Marathon to do this. And so when the first summer I was walking around, I was looking at rivers, and I knew that oil could not be the long-term answer to energy. So that's a predisposition.
Right.
Yeah, and I knew all about it, and you know, heck, I think I might know more about the oil industry than I do the energy business, even though I've created this energy invention, okay? I'm very practical. I work construction, remember that. So when I start thinking about, okay, how are we going to create alternative energy for the world? I thought, because I'd really like to work on that. And I thought, well, wind is not very dense and it's variable. Intermittent energy. I don't know what you all know about that. That means it could stop for a minute, or it could stop for a day, or whenever. You just never know. That's what intermittent energy is. Okay. And then I looked at solar, and solar is by definition, unless the sun's going to shine 24 hours a day.
So solar and wind, even though people think those are the renewable energy options of the future, they can't be because they're not efficient.
Well, they never can be, no matter what we do, and no matter how efficient they think they're going to make it. That's why they've come up with battery technology, and they keep pursuing that, which is what you guys hear, right? Well, it's an attempt to store as much energy as they could, so when the sun don't shine or the wind don't blow, they can produce energy. But think about it, nobody is self-sustaining on these, and they never will be. Now, so that means that the only thing you can do is maybe reduce some of the carbon, because some of this electricity can be used. Okay? But even without battery technology, how are they going to use it? Electricity has to be at a constant flow. So all of a sudden, if you've ever looked at a solar chart of a day or wind, the variable, even with wind gust and when clouds go by, that would cause transformer blowouts. You guys don't know the technical sides of this, but all kinds of problems. Many, many problems. So most of that electricity that we generate from solar and wind is wasted, except for in a household. You know, an individual house does, but the utility sacrifices that, okay? And think about it. I'll give you some more problems with it. If we start installing solar and wind and we get halfway, how are the utility companies going to stay in business? But that's just monetary-wise. That's just a problem with money. But essentially, if we're going to get completely off it and we're going to use solar and wind, okay? And let's say we have a battery that backs up for 2 days. Oh boy, we're all excited. Now the wind and the sun don't shine for a couple days, because in the winter it don't. So now we got freezers at home, right? So what are you going to tell your kids? Kids, I really wanted to make a wonderful meal, but the electricity went out, and the food in the refrigerator and freezer thawed and it spoiled. So I'm sorry. I mean that is how bad and how ridiculous it is. Yet if you listen to experts, they're going strong. It's only because they can make money off of it. That is the only purpose, because in reality, wind and solar, intermittent energy doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And if we continue down this path, and they love it, they market wind by capacity, right? You know how much a 1 megawatt wind turbine produces in reality? It's like measuring the mileage on a vehicle by going down a mountain in idle. And let me explain to you. Wind is 40% of the time. That's where wind is available. The rest of the time is calm. I mean, it isn't magic, these wind turbines. So now it's calm. So now, let's see, 40% of the time, because it's saying that at capacity, they can generate 1 megawatt of electricity. But that's not true neither. Wind turbine operates on average at 25% when it's operating. So you have to take 40% of that 1 megawatt, okay? Or we go with 1 megawatt. That means it generates 400 kilowatts of electricity. Now, only 25% of that is its average working capacity. Because the wind ain't blowing so fast, it's going to generate 100% capacity, right? So that tells you that a 1 megawatt wind turbine that they promote and they get all excited about is generating about 100 kilowatts, 1/10 of that amount of energy. Okay? That's facts. Look it up in reality, and you'll see that it's the truth. Solar is a little bit worse than that. We know solar doesn't shine at least half the day, right? And by the way, there's about a peak period for solar, which is about 4 or 5 hours. Okay, and then from 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock, like the sun doesn't shine as bright, you don't get peak capacity. By the way, on a cloudy day, you have a nightmare with solar if it wasn't for the utilities having a constant flow coming in.
So obviously, right now, almost all of our energy is either wind, solar, or fossil fuels. And if we do not come out with the new energy technology, let's say you were never born, you don't have this idea, what does this world look like 100 years from now?
Well, there is more. Now let's think about it. Geothermal, but it's not used in very many places around the world. Okay. Hawaii, New Zealand, there's a few places where geothermal is feasible and it's used. Also dams. Okay, dams, you know, about 12% of our energy comes from dams. So, you know, that's a stable environment. And nuclear, again, nuclear's got a lot of issues, but nuclear waste, okay? If we don't change and we don't get off fossil fuels, BP predicts 51 years. Look it up on the internet. This is BP. This is an oil company's prediction. This isn't some, you know, left-wing whatever. This is BP. Now, we know we're going to find more oil, right? So we get lucky, and because remember, Montana oil shale, you know, North Dakota, they brag so much about, is less than a 4-month world oil supply. Now you say, well, that's our oil, so what? That's our oil, somebody else's oil, you know. No, the world is made up of one big oil pool. Because if we produce more here, the oil from Kuwait and the different countries go somewhere else. They don't just say, oh, well, America don't use it and we've been sending it to America, so we're just done. No, they ship that oil to another country. And third world countries are starving for oil. So the world oil supply is one big pool, regardless who does. If not, just imagine Saudi Arabia and Iran and that said, we cut you off, okay? So it is one big pool of oil, and we've been living on Middle Eastern oil for all these years. Now, they don't have oil forever. Saudi Arabia has predicted possibly that they'll be an oil importer by the year 2030. So I'm giving you all these scare tactics. They're not meant to be scare tactics.
So if we don't come up with a new technology, you're talking there could potentially, like, you know, cars and plastics, like there's no way to make them run.
You know, the other thing is this, you know, 30% of the oil consumed in the United States isn't for energy. Are you guys aware of that? 30%. It's used to make products. That's how we make our tires, asphalt, plastics. Imagine a world without plastics. When we run out of oil, we don't just run out of energy, and we need a different energy supply by then. We run out of the ability to make a modern society. Now you imagine this world without plastic. What are we gonna have? Everything is made out of tin? I don't think we can do that in this world today. How are we gonna make our television sets? Are we gonna make them out of metal? I mean, everything that we think of today is made out of plastic. I realize it ain't very good in food, but we need oil for feedstocks. Now there is a replacement called hemp, but I'd rather smoke that than I would to make plastics out of it. And I don't think we're gonna grow enough of it to replace oil, not when 30% of it is consumed for. All these things that we're discussing here are on the internet, and I have been paying attention to it, but you young people are hearing it now. You need to go out and pay attention to this, go out and look at this, and understand the problems that we're facing.
And John touched on the mention of these Bakken fields that they are developing out in South Dakota and places like that out west in the Northwest. Fracking, as it's commonly called, is not safe. They're talking about fracking as being some marvelous invention, some tremendous step forward. It's not. It's polluting our aquifers, our groundwater. It is not a good situation, and it's pulling just a little bit of oil out of the ground for a very short term, but I think we're going to pay for it in the long run.
Well, let me give you a perfect example of that since he brought it up. Fracking in New York is outlawed, okay? You cannot frack in New York. Guess who helped stop that? And look it up on the internet. The CEO of ExxonMobil went to court and said, do not frack in my backyard. You can look it up on the internet, folks. The CEO of ExxonMobil stopped fracking in his home state. So it's okay for everybody else in the world, but it's not okay for the CEO of ExxonMobil. Think about how ridiculous that sounds. Look it up on the internet again. I'm going to keep saying that because I want you guys to go out and start looking at this stuff. Right. This is real, and this is your future. You know, you can say, well, gosh, John's going to handle. I can't handle this. You know, I come up with the invention. I'm here today to bring you young people in to assist us, to help us, and to spread the word to other people, and to actually listen to this seminar, because this is actual fact. I have a huge amount of experience in the oil business, and I've worked on this for 11 years, and you know, this should say it all to you guys. I'm not looking to make a penny off it, and I'll probably make a little bit of money off it, but this is not about me. This is about my grandkids, this is about you young people, and this is about young kids and the future generations of this planet. And it's critical that someone starts speaking up. I haven't had a voice till now. Actually, to be truthful, with Mike, Luke, and Virgil come along, you know, we're trying to create a voice for this. And you know, the technical stuff to this new energy invention is nothing compared to us to bring this to you guys in a fair and balanced way to create a healthy world. The technical side to me is the easy part. It's done.
And we're going to get into that a little bit later as well. And so right now we're at the point where if we don't have a new invention, you know, we don't have a sustainable planet. We don't have a society. So now let's talk about.
Let me say one more thing that explain that. I could just as easy show you a picture of a nuclear bomb going off in the world, all over the world, a nuclear war, as I could explain to you what will happen in the future. Pakistan has all kinds of nuclear weapons. Do you actually think that they're going to go without energy as other people get the oil? You don't think that the wars are going to start over oil and water shortages, by the way, but oil too? The first country that gets shorted because we're starting to run out of oil, all hell's going to break loose around the world. And if you don't think so, you better think again. And it's coming a lot faster than what people think. The governments are not going to allow us to use up the last drop of oil and say, oh, boy, all the oil's gone. They're going to cut us off way ahead of time for good reason. Army, security, you know, hospitals, you name it. So, you know, I think this might be our last hoopla right now. And they're allowing everybody to get cheap gas and they're all excited, but it might be the last hoopla. And I worked for the oil company. It's not like oil's a big pool of oil underneath the ground. I'm telling you that it's at 31 billion barrels a year, we're consuming it fast. One last thing. We had a population of 1.5 billion people in 1950. 1.5 billion people. Today there's 7.3 billion people, 7.4, and it's growing. You know the strain on our resources around this planet, and people are not telling us about it. People are not telling you about it. They're acting like you guys are fools or ignorant or something. You're not. You just don't know these things.
All right, so now we're at this point where we need something different. We need something new. Tell me about the process of coming up with this invention, because you were in a good position. You retired, you were at a good company, you had some money in the bank. Like, most people are happy there, but you sacrificed a lot with other people focusing on this for around 8 years trying to figure this out. Correct?
Over $100,000 a year when I retired. Over $1 million I had saved up. 6 weeks vacation plus holidays. Hell, I was at work whenever I wanted to be. To me, it was a huge sacrifice, but I'd rather go to my grave broke and do something good for my kids and grands, something meaningful, than I would to work in IT, just continue. There was a group of 25 engineers and me up by Traverse City, and I was building prototypes out of my own pocket, again, all this stuff. And we were putting them in rivers. We even had a whole school bus stop one day, and as we were testing out a prototype, and high school kids chatting with us about all of it, and it was kind of cool. It was in the Platte River, right at the mouth of the river there. But you know, I built a lot of prototypes. We started out elementary-wise, cheap little cheap prototypes. We got a little more elaborate. We worked on it for 8 years. We failed. Can you imagine working on something for 8 years? I could have been a doctor. 8 years solid working on it, calling people up, brainstorming day and night, putting together all kinds of things, and then testing things out, little elementary pieces to it to large prototypes. It was really quite insane, and fail. And think, oh my God. Finally, we quit. We quit as a group.
So you actually quit?
Yeah.
And this group actually
yeah,
quit,
and I thought,
this
is ridiculous. We're never going to find it out. 8 years.
Wow.
So then you know how something is, I never failed at anything in my life. I'm not bragging, I never did. Military, high school, construction, having kids. But it's important, you know. But you know how it is. You can't get out of your head. I failed.
And the interesting thing is that during this entire period, and I've had the pleasure of knowing John for quite a long time, he never varied in his desire to make this something for the good of mankind, for the good of people, without considering at all a profit motive for himself. He's never ever taken that approach, never taken that angle. This man is really truly concerned about what happens, especially for all of you folks in this room, your kids. You don't have any kids maybe right now, but you will, and you'll have grandchildren, and those are the people that he's thinking about and has always thought about.
Well, before I go on talking about my subject, I want to explain to you, what would I do with billions of dollars? What am I going to do with $1 billion? I guess sit and count it, or what? It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't want security guards. I want to walk around and see the world and be happy. So I have no interest in the greed. And I guess that's what makes us special. I do have interest in making sure my grandkids and you guys have a future that's very bright. That does excite me instead of money. That is very exciting to me because, like I tried to tell you earlier on, this is one vibrant young crowd, which I'm very proud to be here with. So going back to your question, you know, I walked around rivers and I thought, okay, going back to the wind and solar that we got off on a tangent. Water is dense. It's constant flow. Okay? Well, you know what I mean by dense? You know, it can create force. Unlike wind, and then sun doesn't shine very often, water's dense and it is constant, which is the necessary thing to create non-intermittent energy. In other words, to create a 24/7 energy source. Okay? That is constant. So what kind of problems did we have with it? Well, how many of you have ever been in a river and held up something in a river and then see how much force it is? There's a lot, isn't it? But it goes away real quick, don't it? Why does it go away? Because the water surrounds that object, okay? And once the water surrounds that object, the force of it goes away, right? There's a backstop. That's called the ebb factor. So you all know the technical term to it, okay? We found a way to extract energy from river flow without the ebb factor. So in essence, we can extract all the energy from river flow. And we are capable of doing it over and over again. Okay? So this new energy invention, because of that, we know the calculations exactly. We know we can extract 1.5 billion foot-pounds of torque from river flow. Okay? In one location. Now, we know we can do that over and over and over again. Okay? Now,
will you elaborate on what that means?
Yes. 1.5 billion foot-pounds of torque is 2 gigawatts of electricity. Your average nuclear facility generates about 2 gigawatts of electricity. The Hoover Dam generates 2.2 gigawatts of electricity. So, but now we don't say, okay, we're going to do that out of that unit because that's what it shows it can extract. We then are very conservative, so we take away 50% of it for mechanical losses. Anytime you have an object and you've got to turn a generator or gears or something, you have what they call mechanical losses. In other words, you can't extract all that energy. Usually an engineer takes about 25% of that away from mechanical losses. We took away 50 to be very, very conservative because we didn't want to overstate it. So this isn't overstated. If anything, it's understated. There's another place in the calculations, which I can't get into the details, that we should have used 66%. Instead, we used 50% for no reason other than to be conservative. So if there's going to be any surprises to what the capabilities of this new energy invention are, we believe it's to the upside, not the downside. And so that is very, very powerful. And you guys don't understand that, but we actually think there's over 1 million places this thing could be used, and actually more than that. That would be very conservative. We actually think on the Mississippi alone, we could generate enough energy to power the United States for 30, 40 times over. Now, so you understand, 750 million foot-pounds of torque equal 1 gigawatt of electricity. A gigawatt of electricity, the world produces almost 22 terawatts of electricity. A gigawatt is, a terawatt is 1,000 gigawatts, just so you know. A gigawatt is 1,000 megawatts. And a megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts. So that way you guys understand the terminology. So right now today, our world produces 21 terawatts of electricity. I know that this new energy invention could produce 3,000 terawatts of electricity easily throughout the United States. So if I tell that to people, okay, they think like your look right now, yeah, sure. No, it's, this is reality. And I'm not asking for money. The only thing I've asked for is validation. So that should tell you that, hey, what do I have to gain from lying about this? What, 30 people in a room to critique me? Who cares? And since I'm not asking for money, I guess I must be some nut on the internet trying to sell this thing. I'm not trying to sell it, okay? I don't want to sell it. I've had offers from probably at least 50 venture capitalists, which I call vulture capitalists, attempting to partner with me. I've turned them all down. I'm here because I really don't want to work with venture capitalists because it's all based on greed, and that was their first question is this: we can become billionaires. That's the first statement to me. Guess what the second statement is? How does the new energy invention work? So the first thing is tell me about your greed, and then you want to know what my energy invention is, how it works. That's not what I'm interested in. I am completely, I can tell you with all the integrity in the world, the only thing I'm interested in is to make sure the poor and the middle class benefit around the world, and we create a healthy, clean, sustainable environment that can last for tens of thousands of years. And that is my ultimate goal. And if I can achieve that, if I walk away without a penny or who cares about any of it, I've done what I've wanted to do.
And so obviously you have a good heart. Obviously that's evident to everybody in this room. And obviously once this technology is implemented, it'll change the world. You know, everyone has seen that. So let's go back real quick before we move on to kind of the domino effect that this will create in society. Let's move back a little bit, back into what it was like 8 years failing and then quitting, you know, and then you couldn't get it out of your head. Was it just like a light bulb went off? Was it a gradual thing? Or tell us about that process of like.
Well, the 8 years was grueling. I can tell you
you sacrificed millions of, like literally $1 million.
Yeah, and I probably could have made money on that, but I didn't care about none of it. It was grueling failing. I mean, I was just like, oh my God, what do I do now? You know, and I just, and I don't mean that, what do I do for a project? I'm talking about where do I go? Because I knew water was the solution. You know, it's the most powerful energy source on the planet. It's the most constant energy source on the planet. It's the only way we'll be able to create energy in the future. We know dams really don't work. The philosophy behind dams, I know they're the best alternative right now, but it doesn't work. It doesn't even come close to what I've invented. Not even close. So, matter of fact, they'll all get shut down too. The only reason they'll be around is for water preservation, etc. They won't be generating power out of them and tearing up fish and stuff through their turbines. They'll take the turbines out and they'll use it to. There's still good uses sometimes for dams. It's to preserve water because so the water can be released slowly for communities. You know, so the next 2 years was pretty cool. I actually, when I failed and when I found a discovery, I couldn't believe it. So truly, I sent it to my son.
Who's an engineer?
Engineer, mechanical engineer and civil engineer. And I told him the idea and he said, you're crazy. Seriously. And I thought, no, I'm not crazy, but maybe I am, you know, because he's pretty smart, you know. He wasn't young. So I kept looking at it for a couple of weeks and he did too. And he called me a couple of weeks later and he said, Dad, it'll work. Sounds crazy, but it'll work. So then the two of us did the calculations. And another week later, we call each other and we come up, well, we were within 15% of one another. And he went, oh my God, this makes sense. Well, after that, I spent another year working on it before I ever told anybody about anything. It sounds a little crazy, but I wanted to make sure. And you know, I am the type of person, because I worked in that think tank environment, I'll work on something until someone tells me to quit. Because that's what you do. You think you have a solution and then you work and you think and then you keep working on it. So, a couple months later, I come up with a pretty cool idea that I could transform this and I could distribute it in more places, okay? And it could be used differently than what I was anticipating. So that was cool. So I made that transformation with all the engineering and everything, a lot of work, and I can tell you guys 2 or 3 months of work. So then pretty soon I come up with another idea that could transform it more. This time it could be distributed in cold weather. So now the distribution to this is not only in the middle part of the planet, but now I can distribute this in the northern part of the planet. I can install this in Moscow. And it will operate very similar to what it does in the warmer climate. It takes more work and it's more costly, but it works. But it isn't that much more. The cost may be 10 or 20% more. But now,
to today's energy cost, it's nothing, right?
Well, I believe that I'll generate energy for $180 million a gigawatt. That means I can replace the Hoover Dam for $360 million.
So talk to them about what would that do for the cost of energy for the average person? What is that?
Well, think of the nuclear plant being replaced for $360 million without any feedstocks. So that's a one-time cost, without any nuclear waste, and the maintenance budget 10% of what it would be. And imagine being able to do that in a million places around the world. Now, I do have a disclaimer. I could be off on my cost, the $180 million for a gigawatt, because that's an order of magnitude. But if it costs $300 million a gigawatt, it would be a miracle. So at $180 million, it's a double miracle. And I mean miracle, and when I say miracle, 10–20% of the cost of electricity today. Now think about almost unlimited energy around the planet for 10–20% of the cost today. And by the way, it can also power vehicles, not electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles. And we'll get into that in just a little bit here.
Wow. So 10 to 20, so you're saying you could potentially knock down the cost of energy by 80–90%?
Well, the upstream cost to it.
Wow.
Remember, there's a downstream cost, which means the grids, the electric line. But I also know that I can simplify the electric grids. There will be no more wide area network grids that are necessary. This thing could be distributed in enough places, they'll all be almost local grids, which simplifies the electric grids in our country a huge amount too. Similar to this, about 50, 60, 70% of the cost is for long distance grids. And they lose a lot of electricity through line losses. That would all go away. And by the way, because it can be distributed in so many places, the expandability to this is enormous. Where you needed energy, it can just go anywhere you want. The backup capabilities, we can overlap them, so we have pure backup capabilities. So now you can't have one energy source without being 100% reliable. I can help show them how to implement this 100% reliable. That means there's no need for any other energy at all. If you have 100%, not 99, 100% reliable energy source, now you're still gonna have one power line goes out and electric goes out in a little neighborhood or something, but we're talking about the infrastructure. And that means we can have one energy source, and if it's as cheap as what I'm telling you, energy will be thought of as, who cares? It will make anything possible anywhere on the planet.
That's a good segue into what I was just about to ask you. What are the implications of this new energy being available to, let's say, for example, a third world country?
Well, that's part of this. The 60% nonprofit, I can tell you how I want to break it up. So it does create a fair and healthy world. 60% of the profits from this new energy invention will be royalties, because we surely don't want to build everything. All we're going to do is issue, to build it. And we want to collect 10% of the royalties for it, which means right now the energy invention will be implemented, say, at 30% of the cost for upstream. 10% goes to this entity that we want to set up. 60% of that goes to help third world countries and rebuild a middle class around the world. 60% of it. 10% of it goes to the validation company, because they're going to have to set up all the different engineering labs around the world. You'd be in charge of the technical aspects to it. And so they have a lot of work, and they're going to have to share the engineering knowledge, help with people, so they don't get that for free. There's a lot of work involved in that. It's like setting up a company. They're going to be the engineering portion to the company, okay? If you call this new entity a company, the Siemens or GE is going to hopefully be the engineering portion to this company. Then a very, very large international law firm, they're going to get 10%. And they're going to be in charge of all the legal work around the world. There's going to be a lot of it. I can just tell you guys don't understand, but a huge amount of it. So they're going to earn their 10%. 10% I want to go to a country like India. Would be very great. The largest democracy in the world. They're starving for electricity, and they have 4 times the amount of people the United States has. So it would be nice for them to get the extra benefit, and they could act as the ambassadors. I'd love to use the United States as the ambassador, but we've become so crooked. And we can say, well, God, I'm anti-Trump. No, I'm not. I'm anti-Hillary, I'm anti-Trump, I'm anti-all of it, okay? Because what we've done is we're destroying the future for you young people. And if you don't think so, how many jobs are out there? How many of you don't have jobs? How many of you decided don't go to college because there's no jobs available through the college? It doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying it's all like that, but you know what? It's pretty bad. It's very bad. You know, in the 70s when I graduated, hell, I had 10 companies look for me. Today, y'all's begging for jobs. For what reason? There's no reason. You guys are smart, okay? So 10% to go to India to help them get a kickstart and bring up there. Hopefully India, yes. And 10% of it comes to me, but not me. It goes to setting up a county department. It's shared between a few people that help. And if there's too much money, then I'm talking about we don't want much, just a little bit, get our money back and a few dollars. And I'm talking a few dollars. I want to buy a house up north, help make sure my grandkids can go to college, and my God, live a few years and be done. You know, that's all I give a shit about. So that 10% sets up an accounting department, pays the board, does all the other things besides the engineering and the other. So if I'm lucky, I get 1%, and I can tell you if I get extra money, you know what my big thing is in life? To help single moms, because they've been stuck with a burden in a lot of cases that are horrible. So if I collect too much money for me, which isn't that much anyway, I will make sure it goes to help single moms around the country. So that's my goal. That's how this thing would get distributed, and that 60% will help rebuild a middle class. These companies that do work on this will have to pay top union wages, but it isn't so much this energy invention. Guess what happens if this energy invention goes? Guess what the domino effects are? If we're smart as a world and if the young people stand up for it. Desalination plants around the world for fresh water. 60% of the people live close to oceans. Guess what? This powers desalination plants. What's wrong with why don't we have a lot of desalination plants? Cost of energy is too much.
Desalinization, for any of you who don't know what it is, it's taking salt out of salt water and making it drinkable water. That's
so around the ocean, 60% of the people live. We have 60% of the planet right now. I don't know why 60 keeps coming up, but 60% of the planet is facing water shortages in the near future. I don't know if you guys know how. It isn't just California, China, India, you know, all over the world they're facing it. Britain it looks like they may have major water shortages. So this is going on all over the world. There's people starving, not just in Africa. This is everywhere. And also, then China's polluted their country so bad, 25% of their agriculture. They can't farm. Look these things up on the internet. So what did they do? They didn't try to fix that. They went out and bought a bunch of land in Africa and Australia to feed their country. So they're just skipping through the problem and going out and doing other things. And you can look and see, they're buying huge portions of land in Australia, like huge. You know, they're just north of them, and also Africa. So we're having companies and countries act very irresponsible around the world.
Not only that, but the United States is pretty irresponsible too. If you look at the American Southwest, the states that are pulling water out of the Colorado River have drained that river dry. It literally does not flow to the Gulf of Mexico anymore. It used to at one time, but it does not. Not a drop reaches the ocean. A lot of that water is being pulled out for Phoenix and Los Angeles and Tucson and other places like that. Those cities are going to be ghost towns if something isn't done. Literally, Las Vegas will be a ghost town. There'll be no water, and if there's no water, there's no population. Or other
you know, you think this would be a great thing, I discovered this, right? Just a great thing. Really, it's been a large burden. And I can't continue on with a burden forever. I can tell you that 11 years of working on this, and literally spending millions of dollars, and the amount of strain and effort it's put on my family, my life, everything. You know, I'm over 60. You know, I don't have forever to live, and I'd like to enjoy myself. And I'm going to be truthful with you. Instead of worrying about all this money, I want to spend time with my grandkids. You understand? I want to take them fishing. I want to play with them. That is what I'm interested in. And so I'll give you another thing. If I can get this thing going and get it off its right foot and really get it going, and not very long, within a year or so, I don't want no part of it no more. Okay? I want to be an honorary board member. I want to watch young people take this thing and create a world that they can be proud of, that there's a place for everybody. And I'm not a socialist, but there has to be a place for everybody. 10% of the people cannot own 90% of the wealth, and that country function very well. United States is supposed to be the beacon of the middle class. That is almost gone, and they're wanting to take it away here. So I can't work with them. I have to work through young people. You people have to motivate each other. You have to step up. I cannot do this by myself. I created the invention. Oh boy, good for me. And it was a great thing, and it was wonderful that I did. But now you need to help me bring it to the world in the right way. Otherwise, it's just a waste of time. And if I just give this away, I'm telling you, it will be exploited, the greed will take over, and you people, they won't change a thing except they'll make more profits on the electricity generated from this. And that's a fact. And so, without you guys, and without you stepping up, and without you bringing in young people from around the world, there's no traction here. I might as well take a sledgehammer to this invention because it's made out of metal. And I'm telling you, it took me 4 months. I had to go to 5 or 6 fab shops to get it fab, so nobody knew what it was. It took a hell of a lot of engineering just to break up the engineering. I've done all that, it's there. I would rather take a sledgehammer to this damn thing and throw it in a junkyard than to give it to the wealthy people to exploit. At least one thing is the reconcilement from the rich to the poor will happen much quicker than being delayed by this new energy invention.
So let's recap of where we're at right now, because this is a lot of information that we're sharing with a lot of people. It's number one is the fact is that your intention, your motivation for doing this has nothing to do with profit, nothing to do with greed. You actually turned down venture capitalists who wanted to help you make billions of dollars because you wanted the people who brought this to the marketplace to be motivated to change the world just like you are, correct?
Well, it's really, to be truthful with you, it's to benefit the bottom half of the world.
Right.
You know, which right now is you young people, unless a few of you are like billionaires or something, I don't know if you are or not. You look like you could be with that handsome smile of yours, but more than likely we're all in the same shoes. And actually, what's so ridiculous is 90% of the people in the world are in the same shoes we're in. Some of them just has false hope. I know, but a lot of them has false hope that, you know, maybe they've made a little bit of money, but then, you know, as soon as the sickness comes, it all goes away anyway. Yeah, we're all in the same shoes. I don't know why we don't join together.
That's it. So that's your intention. You know, you went out there, you sacrificed 8 years of your life. You know, you
Hey, I also had
sacrificed
fun
money.
a lot of the time.
You had fun, but
Let's
it was
not kid
a lot of
ourselves.
work.
Sleeping Bear Dunes and Glen Arbor is not a place to be sad.
That is very true. You were in a beautiful location while putting in this work, but you put in a lot of sweat equity, a lot of time, a lot of sacrifice. Then it came to you. You actually had an epiphany. It came to you, and now you've created an energy technology that can eradicate the use of fossil fuels. It's 100% efficient. It can be used in any any ecosystem in the world, no matter where it's at. It is more effective than any technology that we have right now. It will cut the cost of energy for the average person by a significant margin, and it is 100% eco-friendly, and it won't hurt the environment at all.
Right.
And on top of that, you want to take the profits from it, and you want to take the majority of the profits and put it in a nonprofit to help the middle class and help progress society. Things like the desalination of water, and there are millions of people that are dying every day because of this. And that's what this can do right now. So what I want to talk about now is let's talk about what this will do for the job market. Because right now in the world, obviously, people need money, you know, and unarguably money is the most important commodity that we have. It determines the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the places you can go to. And it's not that people they don't want jobs, it's just that they're not available. So talk about how when we start implementing this, the infrastructure that's going to need to be created, I'm assuming millions of brand new jobs are going to be created all over the world, correct?
For the first 15, 20 years, because what do you think it's going to take to transition from a fossil fuel consumption throwaway society to a sustainable alternative energy recyclable society? We've mentioned a few of them. Convert all our vehicles, install things at the gas stations, right? Build desalination plants, build this new energy invention, hopefully build recyclable centers where we start recycling everything, because regardless what resource we're using, they're limited, and with 7.34 billion people, we need to recycle everything. Right now we recycle cars and stuff, we need to recycle plastics. Even if we say, gosh, we're saving all this oil from the energy, so that extends out our life expectancy for oil for another, say, 300 years, well then what happens after 300 years? So wouldn't it be nice if we recycled all our plastics? We could almost cut the use of oil completely. Now, what have we done? We've created a sustainable future for millions of years, if you think about it. So now your future generations and 20 generations out have those same resources, because the plastic water bottle that you're drinking can be recycled, and the next time it becomes plastic on a computer. And the next time that same plastic becomes plastic in a car somewhere. But that resource doesn't get lost. Now, how do we pay for that? How do we set up a democracy? The people that build the product, okay, pay a recycle fee for the country it's recycled in, right? That's a very democratic, capitalist and principled way to do that. So the cost of that product is not only the product, but it's to recycle it so that the next product can be made. So that's a nice way to distribute that cost. All the things that we're discussing here, we can create a capitalistic approach to it. But we need to make sure our priorities are straight now. We have actors making, you know, worth $800 million for God knows what reason. It wasn't in when I was a kid. You know, they made a little more extra money, but we didn't have, you know, just these special people, and all the rest of us almost like slaves compared to them. Tom Hanks worth $800 million. I like his movies, but I just don't know about the $800 million. You know what I mean? If it was 50 million or 20 million, that might, you know, be all excited, but 800 million, I don't think so. A baseball player paid, you know, $100 million. It didn't happen back a while back, not that many years ago. But today, we've gone crazy. These are the priorities, okay? But guess what? We have excess labor in the world, so we pay our labor real cheap and they ain't worth nothing. We throw them away. So physical labor has went to nothing, okay? Which needs to change. You know, it used to be if you were blue collar or you were white collar. White collar made a little more money, but not all that much more. Today, it's like this.
Wow. So it sounds like, yeah, the energy invention is the first step, but your real goal is to create a sustainable planet long term.
Yeah, and to create that domino effect.
Right.
Because don't forget, as I'm talking about all these things in a negative way, there's a positive thing. All these jobs. And think about it. When you install something new, you have to maintain the old. So guess what? Well, all these things are being implemented. All the old infrastructure has to be maintained until the new infrastructure is done. You're actually going to create, I believe, almost full employment around the world for about 15, 20 years. And then guess what? Then the amount of labor is reduced tremendously. But you know, if you got, then that's up to you guys. See, I'll be dead. You know, that's up to you guys what your priorities are and what your stuff is. Maybe a worldwide space program set up where the whole world comes together instead of Elon Musk and his family went off to Mars. We can all figure out how to create a propulsion system that works, create maybe plasma energy, magnetic drive, and create something that would be a sustainable energy sources and a future for the space program. Maybe, guess what? Farms, vertical farms in all the major cities around the world to help feed agriculture instead of chopping down the rainforest in South America, the Amazon rainforest, which is, by the way, the filter to our world, which is making climate change horrible. But I can tell you this, climate change is terrible for our planet, as you've been talked about. But you know what would be worse? To run out of oil. That would make climate change seem mild. Now, all you got to do is imagine 8 billion people without transportation fuels.
I mean, that's also like, think about all the food we eat at restaurants or at grocery stores.
Oh, agriculture.
How do they get
there? Agriculture.
Everything is just the whole society.
Run out of energy.
And so
energy is the basis for a sustainable planet. If we run out of energy, this world will destroy itself. Climate change may do it anyway, but if it doesn't, running out of oil will be the destruction of mankind, I guarantee it.
So John, as we wrap this thing up, I think it's pretty obvious right now, number one, that there's a huge problem. You know, if we don't make a change, if we don't make a shift, we won't have a world to live in. You know, that's obvious. And number two is it sounds like you do truly have the answer to that, at least the first step.
I have the prototype, and I've got everything laid out, and I've got, I'll tell you, I got notes all over it with lamination that when they review it, and within 1 hour, any engineer with his weight in anything will validate the power projections. That's how clearly this is done. There is no technical issues I have whatsoever, none whatsoever. It's been worked on that long, 11 years, 3 years of intense work even after the thing laid out, prototype laid out. It's so easily validated that, my God, one of you guys could do it if you just knew a little bit, okay? Probably this guy over here could do it because he keeps shaking his head yes in the corner. But it's that far done. I need you guys. This is this next step.
What's the next step?
For you, for every one of these people, for as much people as I can get in front of as quickly as possible to have these types of discussions. And for, I'm going to be on Voice America, which is a large internet radio station, in the next week or so. You guys, this webinar will be released. But the biggest thing, and everybody knows that millennials talk to each other, you know, and I've never been able to get through to none of y'all. But Luke does, and Mike does, and I've got a feeling the rest of you can get through to people. You know, this truly, you say, what can I do about this? You guys can, it could be the beginning of a movement. You know, it's just you guys, what else you got to do, you know? No, I'm serious. I mean, go to school or whatever, but what else do you got? Do you have a passion for something? What? Okay, how about the rest of you? Do you think this is worthwhile for a passion? Do you believe me? Do you have faith that I'm telling the truth? Well, you know, then if you, it's really that, this is that serious. And I know because you can't see it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, if you can't see something, is it real? Well, this is real. I haven't exaggerated anything. If anything, I've downplayed the potential for problems in this world coming up here, which you all see it anyway. I mean, you can see our world's in chaos. I mean, I need all of you to step up and really step up. And I mean, you know, you go about your daily job, but whenever you can, you talk to someone about this. You point them to this webinar. You show them what's going on. You tell them you believe it's real. And hopefully, I know this is a small group, but that's how things start. And I know that he's going to do his best, and Mike's going to do his best. You know, they know a lot of people. But, you know, I need this lady to step up because you're a different generation. He's a different generation. He thinks it's important for his grandkids. I think you think it's important. I need him to because he looks like a rough blue-collar guy that could scare people into to believe in this. You know, all of you, you know, build your world. This is your future. This is not my future. Believe it or not, out of all this passion I got and everything, I ain't got that long on this planet. I don't. And neither is Virgil's 70. You know, if people live to be 80, you go, whoa, he lived a long life. I mean, this is not about us two. It may not even be so much about her. It's about all of you. And I'll give it to you. You understand? I don't want it. I truly want to give it to y'all. But y'all need to deserve to earn it in such a way at least to step up. You understand?
So, in order for this to go from where we're talking about it now to actually implemented, all we really need is a large international law firm that wants to protect the invention so it doesn't get, you know, obviously taken advantage of. We need a country who wants to partner with us to help them, and it's going to help their people, and it will help them make a profit and pay off part of their national debt. And the last thing we need is simply to partner with the utility firm or an engineer firm that we can leverage their grids.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's all that needs to happen.
I can let you know right now, we're talking to Siemens. So we might be one step of the way. They've opened the door at least.
You got an email from Siemens.
I got an email opening door from Siemens. I also talked to GE for 2 weeks. No more than 2 weeks, 2 months. The senior vice president. And he sent me, he transferred me, you know, emailed me, and we talked about our grandkids' kids and partnering and everything. I thought, oh boy, I got GE to validate. I didn't ask him for money. I don't want no money from him, just validation. And after 2 months of back and forth, and he sent me to their legal department, to the guy in charge of the legal department, which it's out there on one of my posts. And they turned me down to validate it. What for? Because they had too much conflict of interest.
Wow. So you're saying they said no because it was going to take away all their other incoming cash flow that was already
because
there.
they partner with a nuclear facility to supply them generators and et cetera, or turbines, et cetera, et cetera. And the manager that I've been working with, the senior vice president, by the way, and I wasn't some manager, called me back and apologized to me. And I thought, you gotta be kidding me. And I told him, I said, this new energy invention is coming to the world. And so the only thing you're doing is turning down leadership. You're afraid to lead. So I actually wrote a post about how they were like hiding in a closet scared and put it out there and stood behind it because that's exactly what I think about them. So, but Siemens now has stepped up. We'll see if they end up doing the same thing. I don't know where this is going to go, but I do know that I'm not quitting because I would quit on y'all. And since I'm not going to quit on y'all, I don't expect y'all to quit on me.
In many ways, a person in John's position dealing with a big company like Siemens or GE is a little bit like the mating process of a male and a female black widow spider. If
Yeah,
you know anything about
good.
those, the biology people in the class, they know that when the male spider has finished or is trying to mate with the female, if he doesn't meet her standards, she is simply going to eat him.
And I happen to be the male spider in this case.
Exactly. That's probably a good analogy.
Exactly. So we're close, and all we're asking from you guys out here that are looking at this is simply to raise awareness, show people that there is another way, show them that there is a problem, that we do have a solution, because I'm a firm believer in life that you can't stop a solution, ever. You know, that's just how this world is set up. And so this is going to come to the world one way or another. We need it to come to the world, but we also need your help in order for that to go out there and happen. And so it's very simple. If you guys are looking at this right now, below this you can see the link to a petition that we actually have that's going to be putting pressure on the upward authorities to actually make a move and actually go out there and make a change. And so we ask you guys simply to sign it. It's an electronic signature. It's extremely simple. So that's number one. And number two, to simply like and share this with as many people as possible, because education is the key. But education starts with conversation, and we know this conversation isn't probably going to get started by the giant news outlets or anything like that. It's going to get started by the normal, average, everyday people just like yourselves, guys. And you deserve it. Your future families deserve it. Future generations deserve it. And it's just now about raising awareness. And